Here.
Bowden.
Here.
Andrews.
Here.
Proof of giving public meeting notice.
Yep, notices were posted at both schools, sent to the village of Dickaville, Cuba City Hall, as well as members of our media on Tuesday, February 20th.
Thank you. Is there any items on the consent agenda that you would like pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, when someone move, please.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second. Mueller.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Hinderman. Yes. Pohl.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Admin reports, I see Troy's not.
We've got parent teacher conferences tonight, so
Gotcha.
Troy and Deborah not with us today, but we've got 3 more.
All right.
All of them are linked. If you guys want.
All right, we'll move to Chris on the middle high school report.
Sure. Weather has somewhat straightened out, but with the above normal temperatures, we have been plagued with illness, both staff and students. So thank you to all of the staff for their flexibility and to help cover classes when our substitutes are all used up. Special thank you to Julie, Pam, and Ashley for covering things in the office. Middle school winter sports finished up this week. Girls basketball team played last night. Middle school play has begun practicing and performances have been scheduled for March. We had 6 varsity wrestlers make it to sectionals. It was a tough sectional, and unfortunately, we do not have anyone moving on to state this year. Good skill to Bella Austin and the gymnastics team co-op who will be competing at sectionals this coming Saturday. February being CTE month, we celebrated FCCLA last week and FFA this week. Both weeks full of dress-up days and fun activities highlighting the aspects of each organization. Thank you to Ms. Mern and the Middle School Student Council for planning a Valentine's dance, and thank yous go out to Ms. Nelson, Ms. Eriks, and Ms. Hilleshim for helping to chaperone. A lot of fun was had by all that attended. And also want to thank Ms. Timmerman and the High School Student Council for planning the winter formal, which finally happened after having to be rescheduled due to a winter storm. Thank you to Mr. Graber, Ms. Sitz, Mr. McGranahan, and Ms. Slapp for chaperoning. Middle school and high school band and choirs hosted their Pops concert on the 12th, and it was a great night of music that ended with a song performed by a combined 7th and 8th grade and high school band, which was kind of fun because Ms. Clayton and Mr. Clayton played rock, paper, scissors to decide who was going to direct and who would play along with the band. Mr. Clayton ended up directing and Ms. Clayton performed. They really couldn't decide who won. Congratulations to our forensic students and coaches. They held a local competition for practice and then competed at sub-district meet in Blackhawk High School this past Monday night. All 31 students in 18 different categories will be moving on to the conference competition in Fenimore in March and then to district following that. And finally, good skill to our basketball teams as they begin their tournaments. Our girls host Friday night for the regional semifinal game, and our boys will be hosting next Tuesday night for the regional quarterfinal game. We are starting to feel the excitement of the craziness of the 3rd month of the year that I can't say because of copyright infringements.
Any questions of Chris? Thank you, Chris. Heather, the business report, please.
Update on the 23-24 budget. At the end of January, we were 58% through our fiscal year, and we had spent about 41% of our Fund 10 budget. So that's in line with our spending from last year. Fund 49 update. In the month of January, our revenue totaled $748,339.87. Our expenses were $748,182.46. So our ending balance was $15,185.17. In other news, the 24-25 teacher budgets were sent out to staff at the end of January, and they are due on March 4th. Department budgets were also sent out, and they're due on March 18th. And I am planning to have the first draft of the budget completed prior to the spring election. Towards the end of January, I reconciled and finalized the district's annual WRS report, and employees will be receiving their annual retirement report from ETF in the March and April timeframe. The district's 1099s have been electronically filed. This was the first year the IRS required electronic filing. I did run into quite a few roadblocks. I wasn't alone. There were lots of school business managers in the state that were sending lots of emails, and ours were submitted on time, and I actually probably helped 5 other school business managers along the way also. This week, I participated on a call with our financial consultants from Baird regarding flattening our mill rate over the next 4 years if our operating referendum would pass. I believe Mr. Olson's going to share more about that topic in his report. And later this week, Aaron and I will be having a meeting with our attorney, ADM, and ADM is the company that holds our referendum dollars until we need them. So because of our construction project being delayed because of the FEMA grant, we likely won't be spending all of our referendum money in the 3 years. So there's something called arbitrage. So we have to meet with an arbitrage rebate specialist to make sure that we follow state and federal funding rules. So Aaron and I will be meeting on that to make sure that our money, we're following state statute.
Basically what that means is we can't just sit on our $25 million for 5 years and collect, $1 million of interest a year. That's illegal. So the FEMA grant qualifies us for an extenuating circumstance, which means normally in a referendum, you have 3 years from the election time to spend down every dollar. This allows exception. Our architects and builders are very happy that we were able to do that because there's a lot of projects that are gonna be done, and they weren't sure if they would be able to have everything done by November. So Heather also addressed the mill rate management. So when we worked with Robert W. Baird, our financial advisors, because of our equalized assessment for the land, the first year there was going to be a however many dollars and cents interest increase in the mill rate. The next year would drop quite a bit. Year 3 would go up, and then year 4 went down a little. It looked like a W, and that's difficult for people to handle. And so what their suggestion is, you can, kind of play with how you're using the Fund 38 or Fund 39. Fund 39 debt and level that out. And so Heather and I spent some time figuring out what that right number is. And we found a number that doesn't cost us we don't have to tax one more dollar than we said we have to. So for 3 years, the referendum will be like, the mill rate would go at, was it 12.20? 12.20. And then the 4th year, because we use mill rate management, is where that drop would happen. And that went down to
I think it went down like 65 cents or 63
so
cents.
the last year, even though we're taxing for another $100,000, because we've evened it out, the last year is where there's a drop. So that's when she was talking about mill rate management. That's just a way to keep it steady for people, because it's hard for people to understand when there's a W with their school tax numbers. So that's what that was.
And that's on the upcoming referendum.
Yes, on the upcoming
Yes.
referendum. Yep.
And isn't that question already approved, or
The
so we
question,
get that word out to the public that is going to happen?
that just happened today. So that'll have to go in our new communication.
So we had a call late this afternoon because we're working on some communication that's going to go out to the public.
To their mailbox.
To the mailboxes. So we wanted the mill rate flattened so that when it goes out to press and hits the mailboxes, and when we go to do the road shows, it's all the same.
Room 1220 for, you said 3 years?
Yes.
And
And
drop.
that's
estimated.
That's estimated.
What would equalized property value changes significant like last year change those?
By quite a bit. So they told us to not estimate less than 2 and more than 4. So we picked 3. This is right in the middle. But our average over the last 7 years has been 6% increase. So they told us not to use that. They told us to use between 2 and 4. So we did. Obviously, if equalized assessment goes up, that mill rate number would drop. But that's the estimate for the estimates we're using right now.
Yes.
And that's different than 2 weeks ago because Baird just did an update and that dropped the mill rate quite a bit more
Yes.
than what it was
Yeah.
in our initial estimate.
So, yeah, like back up 2 weeks, the mill rate was, and I don't remember if it was the third or the fourth year, it was gonna be like around like $13. And every month, Baird updates their budget model, which is what I use. So every time they update it, they send out a message saying, hey, go in and tweak some of these numbers. And then by doing that, it had to do with some of our aid, I'll say, that we get. So I tweaked some of those numbers, and then that actually helped drop the mill rate. So these are like hot off the press numbers
These are our estimated numbers as of today.
as of today.
And they could still change.
Correct.
Always. Yep.
All right, thank you. Yeah, any other questions on Heather? Aaron?
Since our last gathering in January, during which we passed resolutions to pursue a non-recurring operating referendum, considerable effort has been invested in developing strategies to effectively communicate with our stakeholders. As a district, our foremost responsibility is to provide comprehensive information regarding the referendum. At the heart of this communication effort lies the fundamental question, why is the referendum necessary? In summary, between 1993 and 2009, the Consumer Price Index, or inflation, played a crucial role in school finance via what was called the revenue caps. However, following the Great Recession in 2009, the Wisconsin State Legislature took away the link between inflation and school finance. Since then, our district has been operating with $3,380 less per student when you compare that to inflation-related changes. With approximately 650 students, this equates to a difference of around $2.1 million, a gap that necessitates reaching out to our community for additional support. Compounded by record inflation over the last 2 years, with the projected increases from the upcoming year, the freeze on state spending in 2021, 22, 23 only add to our financial challenges, reinforcing the imperative behind our decision to pursue a referendum. Moving forward, it's important to communicate to all of our stakeholders the specifics of the referendum, or the what goes into that. There are 2 key components to address. First, the referendum ensures the preservation of all existing programs and positions without funding any expansion in staffing or programming. Secondly, it enables our fund balance to reach or approach our policy threshold of 22% of the annual budget. This financial stability is crucial for meeting payroll obligations without resorting to any short-term borrowing. Lastly, we have to articulate our approach, or the how, regarding the referendum implementation. Our proposal outlines a phased 4-year non-recurring referendum, starting with $1.3 million for the 24-25 fiscal year and incrementally increasing to $2.3 million by the year 2027 and 28. Collaborating with our financial advisors at Robert W. Baird, we've developed a mill rate management strategy to maintain a consistent mill rate increase of $100,000 for the initial 3 years, with a slight increase anticipated in the 4th year.
Increase or decrease?
I'm sorry,
You said increase, but I believe it's a decrease in the 4th year.
I read it wrong. Decrease.
I was following
Yeah.
along, I was like,
With a slight decrease anticipated in the 4th year, which is what we just talked about. In addressing common questions from our community, such as the potential use of FEMA grants to offset budget deficits, it's essential that we clarify legal restraints. Our legal counsel advises against diverting FEMA grants for this purpose, as it would negate the terms outlined in the referendum, potentially constituting a legal course of action. Transparency in our communication efforts is paramount. To this end, we're collaborating with Braid to disseminate informational flyers in late March, scheduling community information sessions, and leveraging Bright Arrow as our primary communication channel with our parents, starting this Friday and going out each week until April 2nd, 2024. Lastly, it's crucial for our board members to recognize their role in the referendum process. While board members are not district employees and therefore not bound by restrictions on speech or participation in referendum campaigns, it's imperative to refrain from utilizing school resources for campaign purposes. This would just mean don't use your school email account. And if you're issued a Chromebook, don't use that Chromebook. That's really the only limitation as board members that you have. Similarly, while district employees are not prohibited from expressing their views on the referendum outside of normal school hours, they are restricted from doing so while on duty, and staff, that has been shared with staff, as they can't be either pro or against the referendum during the workday. After that, there are no restrictions. So I wanted to make sure that you guys know, in case you wanted to speak on behalf of or against the referendum on social media or in your conversations, you have no restrictions. Just don't use your school email and don't use any school devices or paper, which you guys don't use paper anyway. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Any questions of Aaron? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, discussion of additional scope items for the building project if the district receives the FEMA RIF grant.
The only update we have is that we got an update from Jordan today. And he spent a lot of time trying to track down who to talk to, what was the information, where is the process. To the best of his knowledge, this is where it is as of 2 o'clock today. Wisconsin Emergency Management has sent this off to FEMA, met all the requirements for Wisconsin Emergency Management. They sent that to FEMA. When FEMA is ready to do a final award, it will go to Tammy Baldwin's office. We had heard that it went to Tammy Baldwin's office. They have a press release ready, but they do not have final authority from FEMA to do that. So it's at FEMA. We believe it's not at District 5, which is it FEMA District 5? It's past that, so now it's at the federal level, which is the last step. They did ask for a certain number from Jordan about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, project number, which was a really easy find. And he said maybe that would be the last thing that they needed, but it has not gotten to Tammy Baldwin's office, but it has been moved out of emergency management. So we're getting closer to figuring out where it is. And once that is awarded and we get final notification, here's the process. We'll find that out, let's say tomorrow, Thursday at 9 a.m. Once that happens, Bray Architects can begin to redo all the designs. They were unable to do those because that's not a reimbursable expense until you get final award. They're going to need about 60 days to redo all the drawings. They'll get that to Epic. Epic will take a couple weeks and look through that and make sure everything's done mechanically, construction, everything is there aren't any questions. Then he's going to put that out to bid in a bid package, which usually is about 4 weeks. So now we're about 3.5 months from whenever we get final notification. At that time, then it'll take a while to accept bids, probably about 2 weeks. And then we have to try to get on people's calendars. For some projects, that might be easy. For some projects, they might say, we don't have time this summer, it's going to have to be later. So as far if people are wondering, like, what's the overall timeline yet? There isn't one, and there can't be one yet until we wait on this last project. So that's the best and most honest answer we can give, even though it's not great. The great news is we're very close to getting $8 million from the federal government. We have to keep that in mind.
Any questions? All right, there's no public recognition, so we'll move to new business. Approve the date and time for the March meeting. It is set for the 20th at 6:30. Any requests to change? All right, we'll skip on then. To item B is approve the high school overnight band trip to Chicago on March 17, 2024.
Yep, this is a regular project, a regular trip that they go on, and we've always had a good time. It's a good opportunity for our kids. I recommend that we approve this.
If there's no questions, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the March regular board, I'll move to approve the CCHS overnight band trip to Chicago, March 17th, 2024, as presented.
I'll second.
Mueller,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Kinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item C is approve the high school softball out-of-state overnight trip beginning March 22nd, 2025, not 24.
Oh, it's not this year, it's next year.
No, it's next year.
Okay.
So if you can make that change, please.
I was gonna say, if they do fundraise like that, it's a little late for fundraising, but that makes more sense. I thought it was this year.
No.
The reason that they asked for this to be placed on it, they're not sure the specifics yet. They just wanted to know if the board would be okay with them going on an overnight trip and missing a few days of school. Obviously, they don't know how many days it is or exactly when it's going to be. It depends. They're looking at a few days. So they just wanted to get approval for this. This is something, if we look at golf, during the course of a season, golf kids will miss sometimes 4 or 5 days of school because the meets start at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I don't think it's uncharacteristic for spring outdoor sports to miss some days of school. They haven't. So because they're looking at this, they wanted to get your approval before they began the planning.
And at this point, what Megan sent me is that they were looking tentatively at leaving Saturday, March 22nd, returning late on Thursday, the 27th. And they're looking at playing 4 ball games, possibly 5. And they're, looking at travel options and,
Is that the Alabama or Florida?
well, it was Florida,
Florida.
Gulf Shores, Alabama, but they're not exactly sure that that's where it's going to be. But as you said, it's more if there's any concerns with, going.
Are there any? I think that's what they want to know. So if someone wants to move on that.
What does this motion have to look like if they're not sure about whether or not it's Gulf Shores and if they're not
How about let's just
exactly settled?
let's
on
just-
that?
Remove that.
Just
overnight, like after
CCHS
overnight
overnight trip.
trip,
as
beginning March 2024. I think
How,
that's
how about out
2025.
of state?
2025.
Maybe out of state.
out of state. Yeah, out of state trip. So be after softball, before state.
You just say spring of 2025?
Spring of 25.
Oops, sorry.
All right.
And how many adults are going?
Probably, I'm guessing a lot of parents are gonna go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they've been instrumental in the fundraising.
We do have 2 we've got a head coach and assistant coach. They would both go. As far as employees of the district, it would be 2, but probably a lot of parents, especially if it's in
Parents are
Florida in the
probably-
spring.
Yeah.
Are there other questions? Otherwise, I will move to approve the high school softball overnight trip out of state beginning March 22nd, 2025 as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mueller,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Hagerman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Item D is approve the change in handbook language regarding support staff and virtual days. Aaron?
Yep, this recommendation comes from suggestions from support staff administration trying to be equitable with virtual day compensation with support staff members. Last spring, when we looked at the initial handbook language, we'd worked with our legal counsel and tried to keep it apples to apples. What we found is that some of our support staff members have some work that they could be doing on those days that wasn't represented there. So we tried to look at each different section. So we've got paraeducators, food service, custodians, administrative assistants. And we tried to look at, instead of having just support staff language, we have language specific for all 4 different categories and talk with those supervisors on what they could be doing during those times and what they could be doing if they come to work or if they're unable to come to work. And we wanted to have some options. So we added some professional development in there that could be done either in person with Janet for food service. She had some in-person things that she wanted to do, but also some online things that wasn't safe for them to come. And that's going to be on the administration to have a bunch of those online things. And we thought that was good. Now, if they didn't want to use those, we changed it. Instead of just being able to use personal time, they could use personal or sick time. Eileen, our legal counsel, was very adamant. Either they're working, so you have something for them to do, or that's taking taking their leave that they're able to take. But if they don't want to work and they don't want to use their time or they're out of time, then that has to be, they have to repay the benefits for that day. Now, for some people, the benefits might be 3 cents an hour and they work 4 hours a day. But for other people, it's closer to, or some of them are up to maybe $60 per day, depending on whether they take insurance. So we didn't want people like that's out of their control, the virtual days. So we wanted to make sure that if it was out of control, we didn't want them to have to pay back the district. So we wanted to come up with multiple options for them. So there's PD that they can do online. There's things they could take home with them to do the day before, or they can just say, I've got some sick time. I'm going to use some sick time for that, or personal time if they want to. All those before they would have to use an unpaid day, which would require them to pay back their benefits. So we think that there's enough there to protect our support staff members and still keep that similar to certified and non-certified staff.
Any questions, board?
I have a few. The pre-approval from their supervisor for the paraprofessionals, what does that look like? Is that morning of, is that days in advance? I mean.
So usually I try
days.
to let everybody know the day before, like, hey, tomorrow
Right.
might be a virtual day, be ready. So that's where, let's just say that Pam might say, hey, can I take these 3 projects home? Because I think I might be able to do these at home. And then the approval would be, yes, you can.
Okay, and then how do we know how long that would take her?
That's where we're going to trust.
I mean, I trust her.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I didn't know about that.
That's why we have with administrative approval.
Okay,
Pam would say, I think this is going to take me about 2 or 3 hours. It's okay that I do that at home.
right.
Yes. Where if somebody says, I think this is going to take me 8 hours, and the supervisor looks at it and says, I think this
Okay.
is more like 2, there's a deeper conversation.
And then what's the protocol when it's just a snow day? Like, they don't get paid at all? Do they have options to work?
Oh, if it's a snow day and we don't do virtual
They're
learning,
just,
then they just write down 8 hours for that day.
okay,
That's what we've had, because then we're trying to keep certified and non-certified similar. And if certified is not working that day and getting paid, then non-certified is not working and getting paid at that same time.
so why can't they just do that on a virtual day? I don't understand the difference.
Because on a virtual day or.
Some
certified-
employees then are
or certified
working.
Staff are working. Because teachers would be they're prepping for that virtual time.
So our legal counsel basically said if you're going to do this and have some employees work for that day, then everybody has to fall in that work day. But if you're canceling it for everybody, then that's fine. So that's just a way to keep it apples to apples. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And then the part I'm very worried about if they are not able to travel safely to work. I would hate for someone I'm just gonna go to work. I'm at a sick time, but I can't pay my benefits, so I'm gonna try to go to work and then something happens. I'm having a hard time with this proposed language, I guess. So I'm not sure. Is that what other districts are doing for virtual days? I mean, have they ever had to pay back their benefits before? We're penalizing them because they can't make it in the weather?
The only people that generally do that are custodians, because they usually come here on those days.
Our handbook has always
Yeah.
said, since prior to Aaron and I coming here, it has always said, if you take an unpaid day, you must pay back benefits. The district hasn't always done that. For whatever reason, we're unsure of why it was in there, but it wasn't it was policy. It just wasn't being followed. For whatever reason, we're not sure why it wasn't being followed prior to us.
And everyone else is good with this? Board members? We're good, I guess? All right, I see some things I'm not a fan of, but I guess it's just me.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I will move to approve the change in the handbook language regarding support staff and virtual days as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mueller,
No.
White.
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Poll,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item E is approve Educator Rising Youth Apprenticeship Proposal for the high school students.
Yep, this is a new program started by Ms. Merwin for high school students who wish to pursue a career in education. So this would allow them to fill paraprofessional roles at the elementary school, just like school to work programs, and we have several of those in our career and technical education department. So Nancy is here, can probably give you a better description of that than I did, but in short, you just want to let us know kind of what this is and how this benefits our students.
Sure, and also clarification, Educators Rising is a student organization, so that's separate from the youth apprenticeship.
So we're
In
going to
education.
approve just youth apprenticeship.
Youth apprenticeship is what you're focusing on, and we have youth apprenticeship in like 16 different areas, different pathways, and now this year they've added education to that world as well. So we're doing what we can to get students interested in going into education, and if they work as a para in high school, then maybe that'll increase. I love this stuff. I love kids. I'm going into education, and we're going to start growing our own. The same way that we are growing our own mechanics and our own health.
And there are
people.
prerequisites before they can do this.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. They have to have some prior experience, either in a class that I have had, parenting, assistant childcare teacher, or youth tutor youth. And that's when we catch a lot of them because they do tutor at the elementary and they're like, oh my gosh, their kids are so fun. And, I really want to do this. So they have that. And then with all the youth apprenticeship programs, they have to have related instruction, which means they're taking related classes at the time of being in the youth apprenticeship program. So our students will be taking the classes I just mentioned, along with a new one that that you approved a few months ago for exploring education. And that would be either as a class or else independent study, but they're taking those. Our students can also take Introduction to Education through UW Platteville. And with that, in youth apprenticeship, CISA covers the cost of tuition up to 6 credits for these kids. So it won't be a cost to this district, it'll be a cost to the CISA.
So let me just make sure I can get that right. So
Yes.
youth apprenticeship, we already have that.
We have it.
So we're moving to approve the Educator Rising Youth Apprenticeship proposal. That's the correct
Just
language.
Education.
Just-
Yes, youth apprenticeship in
In
education.
education. That's
In
how-
education is what it would be, yes. Because Ed Rising is a student organization that we have.
Okay.
That's separate.
So
They can be
that's
in that and they can be in
Got it.
youth apprenticeship.
Any other questions about that?
Questions of Nancy or the proposal?
I don't have any questions, but I love the idea. So thank you for kind of like thinking outside the box.
You bet.
So then youth tutor youth, but then this is like after that kind of.
Right, so youth tutor youth, and that's the focus, because I've had at least 4 kids that have talked to me about doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm basing it on, we'll have them fill out the same, it's on that sheet, I think, that you all have. They'll fill out the school's application if you'd like them to, and then we'll get recommendations from their current teachers, whether it's at elementary, middle school, or over at St. Rose. Or the high school teachers, I guess, too, are also, we have a lot of tours all over the building, all over the district. We have like 37 tutors this
Oh, wow.
semester alone. So lots of experience and the kids are having a great time. But that's kind of the first step, and that's where they kind of catch the fever, and we hope to just kind of keep it going and keep the good ones.
I appreciate that. Aaron just reminded me last Friday, I forwarded to him, because my son-in-law teaches chemistry at Wanakee. They have a Future Educators Club.
Okay,
It's on channel3000.com if anybody wants to look at it. It's basically a student group who've decided
like Ed Rising.
to further education. So maybe take a peek at it.
Yeah, check that out. Channel 3000. Yeah, more schools are starting it, and Educators Rising is the high school edition, and then they have a college edition, and they call it what is theirs? Aspiring Educators. So the students can be part of Ed Rising now, and then just kind of keep going at their university level as well. So it's all again part of the grow your own. Because we keep supporting Youth Apprenticeship has been supporting for the past 25 years all the other professions. We finally have education.
Okay.
grow ours.
That's exactly what this says, that there's a high school senior there at Wanakee who basically said, they're trying to promote all the rest of the professions. What about teaching?
Absolutely.
So
So we're doing it.
if there's no other comments, questions, would somebody move, please?
I'll,
Go ahead.
I'll move to approve the youth apprenticeship and education proposal as presented.
For a second.
I will second. Mueller,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Poll,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item F is approve the NOD, I'm not sure what that stands for, but foreign exchange placement for a student at the high school next year.
Yep. Last week, Mr. Sander just received a request from NOD, which is a company.
Nacelle Open Doors.
Open Doors. And we've worked with them before about placement of a student from Belgium for next school year. So I recommend that we approve this.
Would someone move?
I'll move to approve the NOD foreign exchange placement for student at CCHS next year as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second. Mueller,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Poll,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
motion carried.
Then in new business is approve the increase of certified and support staff wages for summer school.
Yep, this is hopefully to increase our summer school numbers. We also have not have looked at increasing summer school in the 7 years that I've been here. So by increasing summer rate, $40 for teachers and $20 for support staff, I think we're more likely to employ our own teachers who work with our own students and grow our program. So we haven't increased this in 7 years. So I recommend that we move forward and approve this.
Are there any questions?
I just have a question on the summer school formula that we're reimbursed through.
Okay.
Please,
What's your question?
what does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Oh, sure. So-
Reimbursement for teacher pay, so we get that back through the summer school formula, because I want them to make as much money as possible. But with our current situation, I think we need to explain how we're gonna increase that when all
Yep.
the other stuff is
So
happening.
summer school is supposed to be kind of a one-to-one for every dollar that you get reimbursed from the state. And it basically is, summer school is 60% FTE and it's a half day if a kid's here for 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 or whatever that happens to be. So kids sign up. It used to be you have to take attendance every day and you were reimbursed at that same rate of 60% FTE. So at the beginning of the year, like let's say we have 610 kids in our district, there's always in the revenue limit worksheet, it says summer school.
Mhm.
And our 2 years that we were able to have really a robust summer school, we had 20 in there. Last year, because it was a shortened summer, so we didn't have as much, that dropped it to 3 students. So we lost 17 FTEs. Now, the funding formula says, well, that's over 3 years. So we only lost, we lost $70,000 because of summer school, looking at an FTE that way. So that's how the equation works. So we're supposed to make one-to-one dollar, whatever dollar you spend on summer school, then that's what you're supposed to spend. And we ran the equations with this, and it's a little hard to do when you add in transportation there, but we thought that we would be still about the same rate. If our program grew, we'd be able to sustain that. And I think by having our teachers, instead of relying on
Right.
UW Platteville students,
Mhm.
we're more likely to get ours. So we think if our numbers increase a little bit, it will not cost us any more to do that.
And it's enrichment and academics, like
Yeah.
years
It's
prior.
Yeah. We want to go back to, it was 2 years ago where we had 200 and some kids in our
Right.
summer school. Yeah.
Okay.
And primarily enrichment.
Other questions? Good question, Lisa. Hearing none, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the increase of certified and support staff wages for summer school as presented.
I'll second.
Mueller,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Poll,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B is approve Jesse Denard and Jessica Lubker as the summer school co-coordinators.
Yep. I talked with both Jesse and Jessica after Troy had stepped down from that position for this summer, and he had some traveling he wanted to do, and he didn't think he'd be here a lot during summer school. And he said, Jesse and Jessica do a lot of that all the time. Why don't we just offer them that position? We will just have to make it sure administratively, if there's ever a discipline problem, that we have an administrator there or who's able to come up. I asked Troy in the last 2 years how many discipline problems came to the office during summer school, and he said 0. But we will want to just to make sure that they're able to do the scheduling and the staffing and make the phone calls and parent communications. But when an administrator is needed, we'll just have to make sure that we have one available for them.
So are they considered what about reimbursement for them? I mean,
So we just took, it's in our extra duty pay, like a coach, and we just took the pay and divided it by 2. So they're each getting half.
There's a coordinator position, so
Yeah,
there's
that's
a
it.
separate than from the certified
Right.
and support staff.
So they're actually getting paid for the hours that they're there. But the coordinator job is really scheduling and staffing. So
Right.
that's above what they're already getting paid to be there for summer school.
And this is on top of their normal summer duties for their job.
Yeah, what they said is most of the work is done before summer school actually starts, when summer school begins, like after the first day where everybody knows where to go. There's not much to do during the day as a coordinator. So it's a lot, just like they sent out to staff, like what classes do you want, who wants to work, that stuff right now. Then they'll have staffing, they'll send out the parent communication. A lot of that stuff is done before the first day of summer school.
So Troy was the coordinator last year.
Mhm.
Okay, that was his title.
Yeah,
not
so whatever,
admin.
and I'm
Okay.
not sure if it was, like,
Gotcha.
is it 3,200? I'm not sure what the,
It's around.
so if
that,
that's what it was, it's just divided by 2, whatever Troy had last year is divided by 2.
Got it. I was thinking he was summer school admin, so he was also coordinator.
Yes.
Got
that's
it.
what was.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Otherwise, would somebody move, please?
I'll move to approve the hiring of Jesse Denar and Jessica Lupker as the summer school co-coordinators as presented.
I'll second.
Mueller,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Kinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We're down to committee reports, budget and finance. Any news there other than,
We're going to referendum. That's the current news.
thank you for all your work on getting us ready for that. Building and grounds.
Haven't met.
All right. Personnel.
We'll probably start out that process again in June. We should be able to use July CPI numbers. It would be great if we could just say, hey, we're going to meet each Wednesday in June until we're done with that collective bargaining. But that's kind of the current plan, and hopefully that's how that works.
Okay. Policy, no meetings at this time.
April or May usually is when they get out their next revision.
Any news on tech and transportation?
Not since we met and kind of got a tour of the bus garage and with Davis Bus Lines.
Okay. Foundation, you had your meeting last month. CISA 3, we have our monthly meeting tomorrow night or Monday night, I'm sorry. And, at this point, they're doing the budget for next year and trying to figure out what staffing they're going to have. And so it's, Jamie's really got quite a statewide presence. So, I mean, it's really, we're doing his evaluation Monday night. So, and basically everything seems to be rolling around fine. So, time for adjournment. Anybody like to do that?
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I will second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Sorry. I didn't-